Hello everybody, welcome to the third part of my Premodern collection. If you haven't seen the previous binders with specific colors and also artifacts and multicolored cards, then I suggest that you start there. This is the third binder where we have got lands, a lot of different very interesting basic lands, but also some non-basic. So all of these are lands, as I have said. Also what I want to say is that we have got a poll here on this channel. So based on the results, most of you are eager to see some pre-modern content on this channel, in addition to old school 93-94. So I'm going to make it a regular thing. We will have deck techs, we will have card discussions, we will have some matches, we will have some games in Forge as we do with 93-94. So that's some very good news. So speaking of the lands binder, as you can see, I have got a lot of basic lands. Most of them are foils, because the non-foils I have traded, I have buy listed some of them, some of the more expensive non-foils that I had. And my goal was to get as many foil basic lands as I could. The old cards, as you can see, 7th edition, Odyssey, Mercadian Masks, Invasion. That's, I think, it, isn't it? Because didn't have foil lands anywhere else. No, there's also Onslaught, right? So there's also Onslaught. Yeah, so why so many? Because my original idea was to have so many basic lands because I usually had a lot of pre-modern decks. Again, when I say pre-modern, I don't necessarily mean this competitive pre-modern that we have nowadays. Essentially, these are just old frame cards. And I played a lot of kitchen table Magic with my friends here at an LGS. Nowadays I don't do it that often, and I still have those lands, so many of them are just not in the decks. I don't have a lot of pre-modern decks assembled at once. And if we look at the pictures, you will see that very often there are some repetitions, so it's not really high-end collection. Of course, each of these foils is definitely worth several bucks. You know, sometimes they can go up to 10, I think, but most of them don't. So most of them are somewhere in the range of, you know, between 4 and 6, 7, perhaps, depending on the condition. And yes, many of them are not near mint, because, you know, when you look, even if you look at this HD video, you might think that this is a pretty good copy, but, you know, at a closer inspection, you will start seeing some, I don't know, creases, you will start seeing some clouding perhaps, you will start seeing the back that is far from perfection. So again, this is a player's collection, and sometimes I bought some specific copies, some specific art, simply because, you know, it was not as expensive as the others. There is some art that is very iconic, and I still have some of those things, but some, you know, pictures are worth, I don't know, 2 or 3 times as much as the others. And to me, they all look beautiful. You know, I cannot say that I have seen some kind of very ugly basic lands. Definitely not the case for me. So we also have some non-foils. For example, we have got these. Some of them I got from boosters, some of them I got from pre-constructed decks, such as this one, I believe. And we have also got unglued full art lands, very iconic. The very first full art lands in Magic, if I'm not mistaken. And this is the beautiful John Avon forest, and many other interesting pictures. And this is the Euroland. So what is a Euroland? In the previous video, I showed you these packs. I showed you the empty wrappers. As you can see, here it says 1999. So in 1999, they released those Eurolands. And each of those lands is based on a real-life location. So this location is actually even specified over here. So as you can see here in very small font, it says Schwarzwald, Germany. So Schwarzwald literally means Black Forest, right? But this is a real-life location, and you know, if you have been in that location, you might even recognize this little waterfall. So that's what it is. I really like this idea. They are really iconic. There was an additional print of those Eurolands, I think, in 2007. That's why I was able to actually get some of them when I traveled to France. And I managed to buy and trade some of my modern cards for those old Eurolands, which I'm really happy about. Yeah, so this one is one of the favorites of mine by John Avon over here, The Forest with a Glow. And overall, Forest is just a location that I personally spent a lot of time in, you know, just walking around where I grew up. So many of these things definitely look familiar. There is an interesting forest over here. This is an arena forest. So as you can see, this is the Ice Age art, but of course Ice Age itself didn't have foil cards. So this is those rewards with they used the old art and printed it in foil. And what's very nice is that here we see this old school text with add 1 green mana to your mana pool. So this is something that was already replaced, as you can see, in the year 2001, but in this iconic reprint they decided to leave this text. So that's very nice. So moving on, we've got islands, arguably the most important basic land, even though when it comes to Premodern I don't think that blue is as dominant as in old school Magic. And here, yes, we have got some beautiful, again, things by John Avon, for example. This is from a pre-constructed deck, which was called Tombstone, a terrible deck. Really regret buying it. But, you know, it was kind of a cycling reanimator, but cycling was expensive, reanimation was not very potent, and yeah, overall a very bad choice. This is what happens when you buy a deck just looking at the description of the mechanics that it has in the back. Yeah, so this one is a rather popular island that I have. This one I also like a lot. Again, islands are just beautiful by themselves. And here we have got some of the most impressive islands. So this is the most expensive Euroland, as far as I'm aware. And not only because it's island, you know, think about Guru lands, so the Guru island is more expensive than the other Guru lands, but this one is an iconic, instantly recognizable location. And this is, of course, you don't even have to look here to know that this is Venice in Italy. And this is the island itself with this San Marco, if I'm not mistaken, tower. So, yes. And this palace, yes, Doji Palace, I think is the right name. And here you even see those little canoe. No, it's not a canoe. Gondola, right? I think the boats. So yes, really unusual. You know, nowadays you have got a lot of different universes beyond, or whatever it's called, you know, some mashups and so on. And, you know, we also had Mirrodin with more or less modern things there. But, you know, back in 1999, this was really unusual. So when you had some real life locations in Magic the Gathering. So this land is easily worth $40 or maybe $50, but I'm not trading these at all. So I've got one of them which I traded for some modern cards that I had, and this one I got from the pack. So there were 2 packs of Euro lands, and yeah, we will still see those lands. Next we have got another unglued card. So Darren Bader, I'm not really well familiar with the artist, unfortunately, but yeah, it is a beautiful island. I hope you agree. And this, you know, gold and blue, it's just looking very nicely when put together. This one is not very impressive or expensive, but just wants you to appreciate the beauty, the colors. So this is John Avon again, the master of lands. This is from Portal, the original Portal, I think, from 1998. So there was this attempt to bring some maybe younger or maybe less skilled players into Magic. And in case you don't know what Portal is, there was this initiative, and they really printed them as a separate game, I could even say. So there were even some different rules. For example, intercept instead of blocking wasn't exactly the same thing. For some time, these Portal sets were really isolated, but now they are allowed in the older formats of Magic. And here I just want you to appreciate the beauty of this island. I would probably say that it is a tropical island. I don't know. Where do we see such a beautiful location? And what's really interesting to me is that here we see this parachute, right? That's really unusual. Even though this copy is far from being good, I'm still keeping it because this is the card that I got back in the day, you know, in the year 2000 when I was playing Magic. So there's one more Euroland, really beautiful one. This is Danish Island in Scandinavia. Yeah, it is also a real-life location. You know, of course, when it comes to real-life locations, some of them are more recognizable than the others. So again, if you talk about Venice, instantly recognizable. Some of them, again, if you know those places, if you have been there, you can understand that it's from those parts. But if you haven't, then probably it's not that impressive to you. Next, this one, I don't know. This just looks very iconic to me, this Invasion. I bought a red and blue deck from Apocalypse. Another ill-advised purchase, to be honest with you. But yeah, then they had, of course, non-foil basic lands like that. And again, looking at it, I always saw this, I don't know, burning face. I always see this face, you know, here are the eyes, here, I don't know, the hair. I don't know, maybe some kind of a lion. Very weird. Never actually liked it, but still keep it here. And this one is nice because, look, this from Onslaught. And even though it doesn't directly deal with goblins, here we can see some kind of goblin burrows over there, you know. So this is most likely where goblins live in those mountains, because Onslaught was all about goblins in red, of course. Next, we have got some more mountains. Again, many of them are duplicates, some of them aren't. So a lot of 7th edition. And I think 7th edition is somewhat underrated in terms of price, but I don't know, maybe there are simply too many foils when it comes to 7th edition, so not really easy to judge for me. So this is the one I like, I don't know, just wanted to show you. And foils, these original foils with Shooting Star, they're just so iconic. There is something really special about them. Next, one of my favorites probably is this mountain from Invasion. So we got the 7th edition. And moving on, let's look at non-foils. So this is my favorite of the oldest arts. It was printed early on. I think it was from, wasn't it from Mirage? I'm not sure. Or from Tempest. But yeah, I definitely remember it from this gold warded deck. And yeah, it's a really beautiful mountain. So unfortunately doesn't exist. This art doesn't exist in foil because this is the 6th edition. This is perhaps not this exact copy, but this was the land that I had in the 6th edition starter, 2-player starter, which was my very first Paper Magic product. And I really like it. So moving on, we have got swamps over here. So as for swamps, you know, I never got very deep into black in Premodern, and you cannot see a lot of different arts here, so it's not impressive at all. I did play Psychotalk, but then again in Psychotalk, black most likely was just a splash. That deck was actually more heavily leaning into blue rather than black. But yeah, even here we have got some nice art, some beautiful pictures. And this is, by the way, I think one of the more impressive pictures. So this from Onslaught, as you can see, and this swamp flower actually is one of the valued cards. Also, it's by Dan Frazier, the man who gave us so many iconic cards, even in the original editions, as you remember. Let's also take a look at this swamp from Unglued, and yeah, a couple of non-foils as well. Beautiful, beautiful cards. I hope you agree. And one more Euroland. So this Euroland is from Belgium, and Ardennes Fan, it's called. Not familiar with the location, unfortunately, but yeah, it does look beautiful. The swamp is really, really evoking some of the interesting emotions, I would say. And there is one more Euroland, by the way, Lake District National Park in the United Kingdom. So there it is. Really beautiful thing. I wish they would do that more often. There were, as I said, 3 packs of Eurolands. There is also the APAC, so Asia Pacific region, also lands based on real life locations, but that's about it, I think. And here we have got this very, very unusual, because look, year 2007. Okay, so 2007, you didn't have white bordered cards anymore. All of the core sets became black bordered. You know, at first we had black bordered foils in the 7th edition, but then all of the cards became black bordered. So in 2007, it was really, really unusual. But this is this Hachette symbol. This is the publisher of some magazines, and they were printing magazines with different packs of cards, and eventually, after you have bought each of those, you would be able to assemble a deck. And I think that there was a sliver deck. So yeah, these are very, very unusual, you know, could only be found in France as far as I know. And there it is. I do have them, you know, just as a souvenir of the time when I lived in France. And next we finally have non-basics. So as for non-basics, I unfortunately don't have anything crazy here. I did have fetches in the past, but now I don't. So many of those cards are actually traded, by listed and such. So yeah, we have got the tap lands over here. We have got the filter lands, you know, the original filters, maybe not the original ones. Was there anything else? Yeah, I think there were terrible filters, if we can say so, from Homelands, but yeah, this doesn't really count. So yeah, Sungrass Prairie. And yeah, this is of course strictly worse than the Shocklands you've got nowadays, because with Shocklands, number one, they do have basic land types attached to them, but also number two is that you can choose them not to enter game tapped. Yes, not to come into play tapped. Yeah, so Salt Marsh, this was the, you know, de facto standard for me, this tap land. And yeah, for example, I did play Psychotog with Salt Marshes, and it was quite alright. Later on, I did get my fetches, but later on, I actually traded or buy listed them. Yeah, so these filters, I'm not super happy about them. They are, of course, worse than the filters that you have got in Eventide. I still have them, and what we have to remember is that in Premodern we still had this idea. Again, in Invasion, for example, you do have this idea that allied colors are much easier to get. So, for example, if you want to play, let's say, allied colors such as blue and black, or let's say green and white, you will not actually be punished for that. You will have a lot of utilities, you'll have a lot of bonuses. But if you want to play the enemy colors such as for example white and red, you will not have that many options. So Apocalypse was one of those editions that brought us these enemy colors. So, you know, I even quite I would say embarrassingly do have some modern frames here, and you know, I wanted to upgrade them, but eventually I didn't. I kind of stopped expanding my Premodern collection. Who knows, maybe one day I will resume collecting Premodern cards as well, but for now that's all I have. Yeah, but again, I would say 98% of cards that we've got here do have only old frame. So yeah, this is this Pain land cycle. As you can see, there are all 10 lands. So we've got the other card Wastes, the original, comes from Ice Age. Also, we have got some of the more modern things. So for example, Brushland. This one is from Japan. I mean, which edition? 5th edition, if I'm not mistaken, right? Japanese. White border, really crisp and nice copy. So this art, I don't know, a little bit weird to me. This pumpkin patch, or whatever it is. Whoops, again, you gotta be careful with the tripod. Next, we have got the continuation of the cycle. So yeah, this is where it ends, obviously. So all 10 different Pain lands, also more filters. But yeah, here is where things get more interesting. Well, for example, we have got Grand Coliseum. So Grand Coliseum is essentially the same thing as City of Brass, but there is some caveat, and it can add one colorless mana. It comes into play tapped, and you can even get some colored mana from it. And you know, I like this card. Back when I started playing, I was still playing, you know, non-competitive Magic mostly, and I didn't understand how much of a cost it was to have a land come into play tapped. And as a result, I probably downplayed this because, you know, my friends also didn't have this, you know, fetch lands and all of those super optimized mana bases. So that's why, you know, it was weak against weak mana base. So it was probably all right. Now I understand, of course, how terrible it is. Yeah, this one is very interesting. So if you control no creatures, sacrifice Thran Quarry. So this is interesting because if you look at, for example, Glimmer Void, you know, it has a similar ability, but it deals with artifacts, for instance. So very interesting card. I don't really play it. You know, to be honest with you, haven't played it ever. You understand how fragile it is. It would be much better if it said that you can only use this ability if you control a creature, but, you know, if there is a board wipe and it will also make you sacrifice your land, it's not good. Reflecting Pool, one of my favorites, because it essentially doesn't have any downsides. You have a City of Brass, and Reflecting Pool can give you any kind of mana with no drawbacks. So, of course, the problem is that if you don't have any color of mana, it will not be able to give it to you. But yeah, so absolutely beautiful card. This is the original Tempest copy. This is in Japanese. You know, my personal attitude to different languages is that I don't oppose them. I actually like languages. You know, I love foreign languages, just, you know, based on my profession, which is linguists. And the problem is that, you know, these cards are not highly tradable. You know, they're not very liquid. Of course, if we talk about, for instance, Japanese foils and, you know, some other rare foils, yes, they do fetch a premium, but the problem is that it only mostly applies to foils. But another problem is that if you have them, then you will have a lot of trouble trading them. So I usually buy them at a discount. And yeah, I do prefer Japanese because the Japanese is a language that I'm learning just for fun. And sometimes I like to have this stuff in Japanese. Yeah, so Gemstone Mine. Gemstone Mine is nice, from Weatherlight. You know, this is a kind of a block that is lost on me. Those, you know, two blocks, so Mirage and Weatherlight, Visions, So those sets, I don't know much about them. I wasn't around back then, and they're not as iconic as old school 93, 94, and not even as Ice Age or Alliances. So it kind of, flew under the radar for me. But still, I like to have them. This one, so again, speaking of Visions, Undiscovered Paradise, terrible copies, unfortunately, really heavily played, but what an interesting ability. And yeah, there are some funny shenanigans, some interesting stuff you can do with it. I think it can be played in stasis, can't it? Or is it this one? Yeah, I think it's this one, right? Doesn't untap during your untap step. Yeah, again, by definition, as we would do in stasis. And you may remove a card from your hand from the game, and you can untap it. And yeah, and by the way, to boot, it has a really cool art. I like it. Next, let's look at this. Yeah, Judgment had very interesting cycle. It essentially was, the retribution for the black Torment set, which was evil by definition. There were more black cards than anything else. There was a lot of synergy with black. So, of course, the good forces of green and white would strike back in the Judgment set. And here, as you can see, you specifically have this search your library for a forest and plains and put them into play tapped. So it's nice because it gives you card advantage, it gives you some deck filtering, and this card was actually played in Mirari's Wake, which is another very nice to revisit deck, right? Next, we have got those, Travis Ruins, Dromar's Cavern. So these are dragons. These are Elder Dragons? Are they Elder Dragons? I don't remember exactly. From Invasion. And in Plane Shift, so this is the cycle again. As you can see, there are 5 lands in those colors. So this is the central color, and there are 2 allied colors for that. So yeah, Dromar's Cavern. I personally played a very weird, to be honest with you, deck in the year 2001, I think, or 2, wasn't it? I don't remember exactly. But the thing is that it was a reanimator with Entomb, which was still legal back then. And, you had life death to reanimate. Essentially, death is the split card, which is the same as reanimation, but costs 1 more. And yeah, you would get, Crosses the Purger, you would get Kamal, Pit Fighter, you would get some even trashy monsters, I would say. But yeah, you would get them, and it was a 3-card deck. So yeah, there it is. And it's a pretty bad drawback. So yeah, it is a layer, it comes into play, sacrifice it unless you return a non-layer land you control to its owner's hand. So yeah, essentially it makes you waste a turn, and there can be some even more terrible things that can happen. And next, we have got a lot of utility lands. This is what I like about Premodern. There were a lot of interesting utility lands. So yeah, sacrifice a creature, gain 1 life. High Market was very popular with Nether Spirit, that would come back to life every turn. And yeah, I personally played against decks that were running it. So Dust Bowl, it's one of those, non-basic land hate cards. And, this one, I do remember that people played it, but now looking at it, I think it's a bit slow. It's not really that popular. So the same cannot be said, of course, about Rishadan Port. And, well, to be honest with you, Rishadan Port doesn't even have anything to do with non-basic land hate. But yeah, it's just such a cool thing. So you tap a land, for 2 mana. You can very easily kind of color lock your opponent. You can do a lot of interesting things. I played it in my Goblins deck, so this mana denial strategy was actually valid. Next, we have got this beautiful cycle of man lands, and if I'm not mistaken, these were the very first man lands, weren't they? So from Urza's Destiny, and also Urza's Destiny, as you understand, is the very first set that had foils, the very first expansion. So they are incredibly rare. They are very desirable. Of course, the most expensive of them is Treetop Village. and Fairy Conclave comes second. Really, really beautiful, really interesting, really powerful actually, even by modern standard cards. So add 1 green mana. Comes into play tapped, yes, but 3/3 with trample. Super, super impressive. I love it. So this cycle in foil, it's one of the things that I take pride in, so to say. Next we have got some less impressive things. This is the Mercadian Masks cycle, those depletion lands, and you know, it does come into play tapped, and it can only be used twice, but you will have 2 mana for each of those. And you know, I did play it in a control-ish deck that I had. I played this particular Premodern Scary card, and I don't know, I'm still in two minds about it. I know it's not very popular, but it is what it is. Next we have got the cycling lands. So Forgotten Cave, for example, was a popular card in Astral Slide. So cycling for 1 mana. This was a very, very welcome, I would say, addition, because in the past, in the Urza's block, all cycling always cost 2 colorless mana. Yeah, so here we have got even too many Goblin Burrows, right? So those creature type matters cards from Onslaught. And yeah, here is the last page, essentially. The more impressive thing is, of course, Wirewood Lodge, which untaps target elf. So again, we've got a couple of foil copies. This can also fetch a premium price, as you understand. And after that, we can also look at this interesting Threshold cycle. So yeah, we do have this Coliseum. Draw 3 cards, discard 3 cards. Threshold. Odyssey, still my favorite set, probably, from Premodern era. My favorite block. Really, really nostalgic and cool mechanics, in my personal opinion. I know it's not super popular, but I loved it. So yeah, this one is even in foil. And yeah, a couple of lands with gold borders. Gold borders essentially means that they come from this deck from, was it by Gabriel Nassif? I don't remember. So 2004. This was the last year that they printed those gold border decks, as far as I remember. And yeah, we have got those fetches. Yeah, I will probably buy list them or just trade them for something. Not really interested in keeping it here. Also because I buy listed some of my expensive gold bordered stuff as well. And yeah, so Temple of False God, again, embarrassingly not a pre-modern frame. This is the new frame, but it's a lovely idea, isn't it? Yeah, add 2 to a mana pool activated when you control 5 or more lands. Again, this from Commander. Commander made a lot of these old cards more relevant. And here we have got Wasteland. So Wasteland is a way to fix Strip Mine, as you understand. And yeah, I think it's a very good fix. Unfortunately, I bought them at a very high price. Now they are much, much cheaper. But, you know, that's not to worry too much. And yeah, it is a card that you would play in many different decks, I think. And we have also got this City of Brass. What a beautiful piece of art it is. Even though the original City of Brass is also impressive. So that's what it is. Thank you for watching, and please look forward to a lot of pre-modern content of this channel. We will have deck techs, we will have some gameplay videos and card discussions, a lot of interesting things like that. See you around. Bye.